Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholz. This week we're picking back up with Bee, Princess of the Dwarfs, and Chapter 4, which tells how the Duchess took Bee and George to the hermitage and of their meeting a hideous old woman there. One morning, that of the first Sunday after Easter, the Duchess issued from the castle on her big chestnut horse, having on her left George of the White Moor, riding a jet-black pony who had a white star in the middle of his forehead, and on her right Bee, who had a pink bridle to govern a pony with a cream-colored coat. They were going to hear mass at the hermitage. Soldiers carrying lances escorted them, and there was a press of people on the way to admire them. And really, each of the three was very beautiful. The Duchess looked stately and sweet under her veil spangled with silver flowers and her loose cloak. The mild splendor of the pearls which embroidered her headdress was becoming to the face and to the soul of this beautiful person. Next to her, George, with his waving hair and bright eye, looked quite handsome, and the soft, clear color of Bee's face, who was riding on her other side, was a delicious pleasure to the eye, but nothing was more wonderful than the flow of her fair hair, bound in a ribbon embroidered with 3 golden lilies. It fell down her shoulders like the splendid mantle of youth and beauty. The good folk looked at her, and each said to the other, "What a pretty young lady!" The master tailor, old John, lifted his grandson Peter in his arms to show him Bee, and Peter asked whether she was alive or whether she was not really a piece of waxwork. He could not understand that a creature so white and delicate could belong to the same species as he, little Peter, did, with his chubby sunburnt cheeks and drab rustic smock laced at the back. While the Duchess received these marks of respect and kindness, the 2 children showed the contentment of pride, George in his flush, Bee in her smile. This is why the Duchess said to them, "These good people greet us very cheerfully. George, what do you think of it?" "And what do you, Bee?" "That they do well," said Bee. "And that it is their duty," said George. "And for what reason is it their duty?" the Duchess asked. Seeing they gave no answer, she continued, "I'm going to tell you. From father to son, for more than 300 years, the Dukes of the Clarities, lance in rest, protected these poor people, who owe it to them that they can reap the harvest they have sown. For more than 300 years, every Duchess of the Clarities has spun wool for the poor, visited the sick, and held their babies over the baptismal font. That is why, children, you are greeted." George thought, "The plowman will have to be protected," and Bee, "I'll have to spin wool for the poor." So, conversing and reflecting, they made their way through meadows enameled with flowers. A range of blue hills ran its indented line along the horizon. George stretched out his hand toward the east. "Is that not a large shield of steel I see over there? It is rather like a silver buckle as large as the moon," said Bee. "It is neither a shield of steel nor a silver buckle, children," the Duchess answered, "but a lake shining in the sun. The face of the water that from a distance look as smooth as a mirror is broken into innumerable waves. The banks of this lake that seemed to you as clean as if they were cut out of metal are really covered with reeds, waving their light plumes, and with irises whose flower is like a human eye among drawn swords. Each morning white mists cover the lake, which shines like armor under the midday sun. But you must not go near it, for the Sliffs live there, who draw travelers down into their crystal manor." And now they heard the tinkle of the hermitage bell. "Let us get off," said the Duchess, "and go on foot to the chapel. It was neither on their elephants nor their camels that the wise men of the East approached the manger." They heard the hermit's mass. An old woman, hideous and in rags, knelt next to the Duchess, who offered her holy water as they went out of church, and said, "Take some, my good woman." George was astonished. "Did you not know," said the Duchess, "that you must honor the poor as the favorites of Jesus Christ? A beggar woman just like this one held you over the baptismal font with the good Duke of the Black Rocks, and similarly your little sister Bee had a beggar as a godfather." The old woman, who had guessed the feelings of the little boy, leaned towards him leering and said, I wish you the conquest of as many kingdoms as I have lost, my prince. I have been queen of the island of pearls and of the mountains of gold. Every day I had 14 different kinds of fish served at my table and a little blackamoor to carry my train. And by what misfortune did you lose your islands and your mountains, my good woman? Asked the Duchess. I offended the dwarfs, who carried me off from my states. Have the dwarfs so much power? Asked George. Living under the earth, the old woman said. They know the virtue of stones, fashion metal, and discover springs. The Duchess. And what did you do to vex them, good mother? The old woman. On a night of December, one of them came to me to ask my permission to prepare a great New Year's supper in the kitchens of the castle, which were larger than a capitular hall, and furnished with stew and preserving and frying pans, pipkins, cauldrons, broilers, ovens, girt-irons, porringers, dripping pans, meat screens, fish kettles, pastry molds, jugs, goblets of gold and silver and of grained woods, not to speak of the turnspit, skilfully wrought of iron, and the huge black kettle hanging on the pot-hook. He promised that nothing should get lost or be damaged. I refused his request, and he withdrew, muttering dark threats. 3 nights after, which was that of Christmas, the same dwarf returned to the room in which I was sleeping. He was accompanied by a multitude of others who pulled me from my bed and carried me off in my nightshirt to an unknown land. This, they said to me on leaving, is the punishment of rich people who will not grant a portion of their treasures to the industrious and gentle nation of dwarfs who fashion gold and cause the springs to flow. So spoke the toothless old woman, and the Duchess, having comforted her with words and money, took again the road to the castle with her 2 children. And that is Chapter 4 of B, the Princess of the Dwarves, in which we first finally get a story of the dwarves. And it is not a particularly flattering one, is it? This is Dan Scholz of the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you'd like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As always, thank you so much for listening.